Well, I want to focus, or I want to ask a question about Rocky Mount, and then maybe hit on some of the housing in some of the smaller cities in Nash and Edgecombe. But in Rocky Mount, we've talked a lot about downtown.
Right.
Just talk a little bit about policies that have been put into place, maybe some projects, that have been announced, some things that are going on there. And I mean, the city's really putting its money where its mouth is.
Yeah, it has. We still haven't come up with that comprehensive plan that I've been pitching now for, it feels like 6 years. I felt a little bit like John the Baptist, and I'm waiting for somebody to chop my head off. But I think that would really help us a long way. But what we decided, at least conscientiously, is look, if we're going to create traffic downtown, it's one thing to put grants in place. But we've got one of the ways to do it perhaps is restaurants, because we have this problem, right? What comes first? The resident population that we want. We're building, we had a target of 500 people downtown, and there are a couple of projects that are happening down there. You're part of one or two of those. I'll let you talk about that. And I've got several on the drawing board that haven't really been announced yet or funded, and so it's happening. But we also have to have a reason for you to come downtown.
And stay downtown or live downtown.
That's right. Because, when I was a kid, we didn't have the bypass, so you had to go through town basically to go anywhere.
Yeah.
And so that customer count, that traffic count, generated customer count.
Right.
And then when the mall was built and the bypass was built, it kind of changed that flow. But it's charming, it's exciting. We had the Moorhead Cane guys here. You were instrumental in bringing those to town. One of the several thoughts, underlying themes that kept coming up were how do you create basically a streetscape where you have bars and restaurants. And so we took a modified approach to that and said, okay, well, can we give somebody $50,000 to come downtown and put a restaurant in place? Mm-hmm. And we've funded now 3 as a result. You guys have to try it. There's a great Indian restaurant. It's very good. Now, the mistake I've made, I seem to really crave Indian food on Tuesdays for lunch. And of course, that's the one day they're closed. I drove by it again today, and I'm like,
they're closed
Tuesday. I've got to get their urge to come on Wednesday. But, we got a great seafood restaurant and busted the gut.
Have they opened up yet?
They're open, and
good.
I got to tell you, it's fantastic. The name is a little unusual, but the reason for it is they're also wanting to do a comedy club. So when you realize that it's a twofer name, that makes a lot more sense.
That makes a lot more sense. Yeah, we need to put that narrative out there.
That's exactly
I think a lot of people were.
But I can tell you that the food is outstanding.
Yeah,
I've been there several times, and it's been great. And of course, Mo and the other folks who've been down here for a while, we want to continue to celebrate those guys. And so, we're trying to do that, trying to infuse that sort of persons into town, into the downtown area in particular. But
that's great.
You were talking about 20 years. I mean, I call that the 20-year overnight success.
Right.
I've built businesses in the past and stuff like this, and you do it for slog for 20 years.
Yeah.
And then one day
you get to celebrate.
One day it looks like blue sky. It looks like it happened overnight. But the reality is you slog for 20 years, creating the environment and the opportunity, and all of a sudden the planets come together. So, so I think that's where we are, and you got to start that at several different places and hope they all converge.
And it all comes together well through job creation, some of the things like the commuter system.
Sure.
I mean, a lot of this is all interconnected. It's all chicken and egg problems. You get the people living downtown, but you got nothing to do, or you get restaurants downtown, but you got nobody living there. Mm-hmm. So,
and I did get some funding for microtransit. We're going to be demonstrating that. It's a demonstration project, City of Rocky Mount here soon.
Good.
So I really feel like that'll help with, it's about creating that flow for folks,
traffic flow.
And we got a region of that. We fail to forget we've got a regional transportation network. It may not be be flushed out, but we've got the
we do have the infrastructure for that, for sure.
Mechanics are there.
Right. I mean, look what they're doing in Raleigh, Durham, right? They're trying to get that.
That's right.
We already got it.
That's right.
I mean,
So. The other question I was going to ask, for the smaller cities in Nash and Edgecombe, talk about kind of the role that they'll play in the housing just in general. I mean, Nashville is. Are they ready for this growth? Same thing with Tarboro. I mean, they're towns of 5,000 and 10,000.
How about Canida, right in the middle of Tarboro in the Kingsborough Business Park and Greenville.
Yeah.
When we think about, we just look at counties. We have to look at, like you were describing earlier, the rim of that's around us that's coming up as well, and that square between Tarboro, Greenville, Wilson, and Rocky Mount. It gets that clean slate, if you will. And one of the things we've tried are working on is bringing the mayors together. larger facilities, but all the way down. We got a really dynamic mayor down in Canita.
I just met her. She was upstairs in my room. We were talking about flood control.
Oh my gosh!
Along with some farmers. It's a delightful lady.
Yeah, passion beyond, because they want to do what's right and take advantage of these opportunities. But a lot of hand holding, not so much, but from us, but Department of Commerce. That's the other thing. Our state and the support that we get from Raleigh through Commerce or EDP&C. Since I've been in this position, I had no clue what was out there. Even DWQ has a point person that handles permitting and enforcement issues that when we bring industry in here, or even existing industry, we put them. I wish I had that 30 years ago when I was in the chicken business trying to build chicken houses, because just little things like that make a huge
helping
difference.
Guide folks through. You sent me some stats on all the 3,000 plus permits that have been pulled in the last 4 or 5 years, and then plus all the projects and lots that are getting put in right now,
and
plus the announced. It's probably 4,000 to 5,000 in Nash County.
Yeah, I want to echo the mayor's sentiment when he's talking about the chicken or the egg, or what do we get first, and in terms of downtown, in terms of industry and workforce, but also residential. And we talk about wanting a Wendell Falls and wanting a really dynamic mixed-use development, and we're finally getting those types of developers with that interest. And I think that for so long it was just get a developer that wants to do a development that has 40 lots. Great, that's a win. Well, now we don't necessarily need that. We want somebody that's doing a thoughtful approach to development and providing the housing that gives us, workforce housing options, but also single family options with larger lot sizes. And we've had a lot of challenges in figuring out what that looks like for Nash County, because we do have a section of the county that's butting up to Wake County, butting up to Wilson, where we've seen that dynamic growth. And so we've had a lot of residential permits pulled in the county jurisdiction. Rocky Mount has seen an increase in the last few years. And again, I go back to COVID, people deciding that they can afford it out here. But now we're seeing where we can maybe enact some policies where we're looking at it from a smarter approach for development, supporting it, and being strategic in where we're locating these types of developments. But we've been pretty strong from residential. I hope that we will continue to see these developments that are bringing the higher quality of life amenities. So, we see it in Rocky Mount with the project over on Sunset. That's going to be a major driver for the core part of our two counties. But we're also getting the looks on the other parts. So Middlesex to Bailey to Spring Hope. We've got those arteries of 64, 264, and people are taking notice. And maybe our permitting process in Wake County isn't as easy as it is in Nash and Edgecombe County. And that's something that I think that we need to sing from the rooftops, is that you're not going to get hemmed up for years in getting a project through. And we owe a lot of that to some hardworking staff that has been pretty strapped for the last couple of years with the demand we've seen.
Well, I think to that point, and that is part of what makes our job easy, is the staff here at the city or the counties, that when a company comes in and they want to know the permitting process.
It's green tape, not red tape.
2 weeks, boom, we can help you. Now, it's got to be legit, it's got to be right.
Of course.
But their customer service, the water department here in Rocky Mount, we put them in front of a beverage company. They bring their pitcher of water and pour water. They're salespeople.
That's right. Yeah.
Everybody's a salesman.
Brenton does a great job, doesn't he?
Oh my gosh,
he does.
And man, the whole crew. Yeah.
Well, the other thing you see in Wake County in particular, the cost per acre is prohibitive if you're having to put a well and septic in, to be able to build that house and sell it. So you need the density that water and sewer bring, and we do have that. We still have availability in our area. That's not to be undersold, or you need to understand that's a big asset for us.
And it goes out into the county.
Yeah, it does.
The network.
That's right.
Again, going back to that legacy investment.
That's right.
One thing that I'll say, and I think this is a perfect transition as we start to wrap up here in the next few minutes, but just from a development standpoint, I was on a call with Brenton and Donald
Sure.
Perry yesterday, just talking about sewer allocation. We have plenty of water capacity, for big projects.
Yep.
Sewer, it was in a particular part of the city of Rocky Mount.
We have plenty of capacity to work the sewer. We just don't
Yes.
necessarily have the pump station.
Correct.
transportation.
And that is so that
That's it.
kind of gets into
Yeah.
some of the policy, some of the infrastructure
Right.
needs that we're going to see
Right.
as we see all this growth. So I'd just love to kind of open it up just for anybody. If you had a magic wand and could solve some of these policy issues or infrastructure issues, what should we be looking at investment wise? What should we be thinking about policy wise? I know Edgecombe County ordinances are different than Nash County's. You guys have R30. I think you guys go down to R20 if I remember right. So some of that pushes some of the higher density
Trying
stuff to
to.
the 336s.
That's right.
Right.
But you still might have more of the rural, if it's connected to sewer, great, or maybe
Right.
they're bigger lot sizes with septic,
Right.
right? So they're all policy choices, but if you had a magic wand, what should we be doing today? And that's open to anybody, for
Also-
jobs and for residential.
Well, so what I would do, and what I've told folks internally, and I don't know that it happens, but if I were the city of Rocky Mount, I would be trying to put as much infrastructure in on the major corridors that we have: 301, 4, 64, 97, both directions, water and sewer as far as we could possibly afford it. Petitioning DOT to try to create even wider roads there to be able to annex and create a tax base, and also to be able to control what that development looked like in those corridors. And I think from that we would be able to sustain some growth, but more importantly, it would be just as impactful for all those around us, and it'd be complementary in more ways than not.
Yeah.
And so in that same vein and same conversation, we've had a historical problem. Rocky Mount's got lots of capacity in water and sewer. We got lots of water, in fact, and people ask us all the time to sell it. They want us to do 40-year deals, and we just haven't, because we want to make sure that we start talking about battery manufacturers and other folks that need a lot of water, that we've reserved those assets.
Data centers,
for
those types
us,
of things.
right?
Yeah.
Versus
Very
just-
That's right.
although it's very tempting to sell the water.
Right.
It makes,
Yeah. It's a short-term trade-off.
it absolutely is. But I think if I could go back and figure out what the hostility has been between the city and the county and other areas, particularly as it relates to water, sewer, and the power struggles that have somehow or another maybe evidenced by the conversation. I think that's something that we could do better, and I think would be better for us. But it takes some peeling back and some folks willing to be able to understand. And I think we're getting there. I think
Yeah.
we're getting really close to there.
I would say from an infrastructure standpoint, the future is power. Everything's resolved, whether everybody understands data centers and that, but advanced manufacturing, but all the way down to a small industry, even our homes, that we have got to have that supply of power. So it's and one of the things coming in this job I really didn't appreciate was the complexity of the regulatory. You've got territories, and in our region we have Duke, and we have Dominion, we have Edgecombe Martin, we have electric cities for Rocky Mount Tarboro. All that, they dance together. You got unassigned territory. How we can work that, but also because of the fact that we have power coming in the way of natural gas and major transmission lines. Unfortunately, we didn't get the big one that came down, but that would
The easements are still there.
They are, and we had negotiated a point of distribution here. It was a
transmission.
big deal, but
Yeah, yeah.
I'm sorry.
So maybe
Would've been a big
maybe
deal.
our friends in Washington at some point in time will recognize the opportunity to take advantage
Yeah.
of those. And I don't want to get in politics, but again, we need commodities. I was in the egg business and I understood pipelines of corn to feed chickens, right?
Yeah.
It's the same thing. The heartbeat of having power, whether it's natural gas, and converting it. Maybe we look at out of the box thinking of a utilities type of systems that could maybe power all of Kingsborough behind the meter. And there's a lot of regulatory. These are 20-year vision type stuff, but things are going to change because the demand for power.
I want to double click on that. So we've got some pretty big announcements that have been made, and I think some things that are in the pipeline as well that are going to be big power users. It's not like a resident can call up a power company and say, I need X, Y, and Z, for my business. But when you have these big users, like, can you peel back? What does that look like for actually getting more power for those big economic development drivers?
Yeah, it's a
What's the timeline? How does it work?
Oh,
It's a lot like the sewer problem.
maybe
long-term
maybe
planning
longer.
is what I will
So,
mention.
it's supply and demand,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You got to generate it,
Yeah.
you got to transmit it, and those are two different functions, whether it's natural gas or power.
So, okay, pause there. So we have the transmission.
So I'll give you an example. How about
Go
this?
ahead.
Real life. We have just that. Folks want to put in, high energy use. We have the capacity in the city of Rocky Mount to sell it. Our utility rates are among the cheapest in the area on a per kilowatt basis, but we don't have the transformers to be able to break it out of to be able
The
to
high voltage
That's it.
lines,
To
okay.
be able to deliver it. So for us to be able to do that, we can make it happen. And we've agreed that we want to make it happen for this particular customer, but it's going to take 2 years. It's just like a sewer lift station. It's just going to take 2 years. If I have the money today,
It'll still take
Is that
gonna
a
take 2
function
years.
of the parts, like the materials actually do it, or just bidding it out
in
materials?
part, that's part of it. In part, it's actually for permissions and
Permitting,
Permitting.
and
Yeah,
drawings, and the construction.
And unfortunately, it's not something we just control.
Right.
you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah. Well, I remember, like, even during COVID, down in Wilson, they had that big multifamily project, and the building I think was built, but the switchgear hadn't arrived.
Sure.
It was 18 months out. Well, when they ordered it, it was. So that was the last thing they
Well,
needed.
that's what they thought it was.
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
They ordered it.
When they ordered it.
It may have been
Longer.
24. Yeah, it could have
Yeah,
been.
yeah,
And
right,
and that's
yeah.
the problem. It's non-controllable to you, right?
Right.
So,
Right.
Yeah.
In terms of a timeline, and
Sure.
you've got all the funding and the want to,
Absolutely.
but it's got to go through the process.
Yeah.
And it really hurts to that. Just trust me. It's gonna
It's going to happen. It's like, well, when?
But
when?
I don't know. I can't give you a
You're
timeline.
right.
If I could, I
Right.
would.
Yeah.
So in Nash County, power also not an issue.
I would say that I'm going to echo their sentiments. I did not know a thing about sewer before I started working at economic development. I know more than I ever thought I wanted to know about sewer, thanks to some fine people in Rocky Mount who educated me and some people in the county. But yeah, it's having the capacity, and there's so many different entities that control so many different pieces, and maybe if we take a step back and look at it holistically to say, okay, we do have territory areas for electric and even for some sewer. How can we master plan a little bit to where we know those growth corridors are going to happen? Who's going to take that? How do we partner to make it happen quicker than what these timelines are? So I would say if I had a magic wand, I'd have unlimited sewer and
Sewer
unlimited
capacity.
power, and I would never have to turn down some of these projects.
Damn, I can't believe you dreamed even bigger than I
No,
did.
why wouldn't I? He asked for a wand.
I
And-
gave you a wand.
You did,
Yeah.
damn.
and
I
even
didn't use
natural
mine
gas.
yet.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
let's add that
Yeah.
too. I
Bring
mean,
it on.
we've got a whole section of the county that, we can't serve with natural gas
Gotcha.
for industrial users. And that really hurts the types of industry we want to
Yeah.
recruit.
And again, that's just because you don't have the transmission. Today.
It's so far,
So
and
far
it
away.
takes a user to
Yep.
get the entity to be able to
Right.
to run it.
It's another chicken and egg kind
It
of
is,
problem.
but it pays to have good utility partners that are in it with you. And
Yeah.
I can say, like, we work with the city of Rocky Mount on multiple utilities. They are always willing to work with us. We work with Duke Energy. We work with the city of Raleigh for sewer in Middlesex. So it helps having those relationships where when you do have a project, they're not going to just outright tell you no. They're going to say, well, it might take a minute, but we won't tell the client that. We're going to work on the back end and
I
make it
think
happen.
That's the thing about economic development. Everybody is pulling pretty much in the same
That's right.
direction.
Right.
You'll have some opinions, but the other thing we've not talked about is the next utility that is becoming so critical is data. Data is just as valuable as natural gas, and that's our society. We have a tremendous backbone of fiber in this region. It goes back to that legacy of the big building downtown
That's right.
with
Yeah.
Carolina
That's right.
Telephone that was there,
That's right.
back in
Oh,
the day?
I don't remember
In the
it not-
1900s.
I don't remember it not being there. How about
Okay.
that?
Yeah,
My entire
we've
life
laid
is-
the sleeves for a
Right.
lot of the broadband to be distributed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's and it's not only north and south up and down those corridors, but the North Carolina network that went east
Yeah.
and west down 40. The two of
Yeah.
those is it's very very much like the highways are.
That is a critical juncture for that utility for the entire East Coast.
Yeah.
You know,
We all not to talk too much about it.
we can't, but it's critical.
Yeah.
So it sounds like power is always something, especially with advanced manufacturing, that we're going to need more of. And it sounds like we've got some great utility partners that, you know, when the demand, not if, but when, as the demand is continuing to ramp, they're willing to ramp production and transmission of it. You know, the sewer challenges, I would say, is just a function of multiple municipalities coming together and being more of a regional planning, sounds like. So, you know, we've got one big city that splits between two counties. We've got multiple smaller cities that are in Nash, you know, multiple smaller cities that are in Edgecombe. How do you guys feel like today? The regional, like, are we working together? You know, are we trending in that direction? You know, how do we feel like that's?
Let me give you a prime example of that. Rocky Mountain Industrial Village. You know, we tend to economic development. You know, it's like, we're working together on marketing that as organizations, and there's a lot of structure and different things and the identities of the organizations, the way Susan's working directly with the county. We're independent, so there's some differences. If we don't work together, even with Wilson and Pitt counties and as a region, we're not going to be able to meet our potential.
Right. Right.
In my opinion.
That's a great example because it's in the city of Rocky Mount. It's public-private partnership, which we didn't even get into today.
It's in Nash County.
It's in Nash County, and you guys, you know, worked with the developer kind of to steward it all the way through. So
that was led by the economic developer in the city. So I mean, it's almost
it's a joint effort.
We've worked closely with them at a staff level when projects come in from the state or even inquiries it doesn't fit for us, the timeline doesn't match up. I'm like, Brenda, Bob, I got somebody I want to send your way. So there definitely is, I think, more cohesion and working together when we're talking about projects, and even outside of industrial projects, talking about workforce housing, talking about regional child care, these other components to what make the Twin Counties a really good place to live. We want to highlight those together, and I think that I've seen more of a positive approach to that in the last couple of years in telling that story outside of our two counties. And this podcast is certainly a good example of that. Is we have a story to tell, let's tell the positive one to the folks that want to hear it, because people are coming east, and let's plan it appropriately and work together.
And I think the other asset we have as organizations is the chamber. What David and his group do, what Alan Matthews and Norris are doing. Hopefully we're trying to hit on all cylinders and move ahead, but also be planning, you know, what our forefathers did, so to speak, you know, 20, 30 years ago. We need to I remember seeing a curve, Mayor, you know, in terms of technology doubling in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and we're there. We're right
now.
there. It's like there's like the exponential curve of, you know, don't stop here, and then, you know, continues
right.
So we got to be thinking way ahead. I used to plan, you know, everybody, where are you going to be in 5 years? Now it's where are you going to be in 18 months?
Right.
What are you going to do? But on the other hand, we need to be planning now 5, 10, 15, years. 20 years and have the vision of opportunities.
Well, and that's, you know, just to kind of wrap the podcast, I think that's a great point to kind of wrap things up on, because we have billions, you know, announced of economic development in the region, in Edgecombe and in Nash County. We've got, you know, 4,000 in Nash County permits issued in the last few years, with probably 1,000 plus currently. We have, you know, not quite that many, but maybe 1,000, 2,000, something like that.
200 was approved yesterday.
In Edgecombe County. You know, very quickly we're going to be running into these infrastructure constraints, which you guys all are collectively addressing. So it's exciting times to be thinking out about, you know, what's going to happen in 10 years. How many people are going to move here? How many jobs are we going to create?
And the culture. We still got to have the culture of, you know, whether it's Princeville or Tarboro or, of course, Rocky Mountain, Nash, you know, the original Nashville, right? That we still got to embrace that. And like I was saying earlier, we still want potatoes.
Well, the good thing is we've got...
Maybe not the gnats, but we'll take the potatoes.
Maybe cotton and peanuts. Let's get it right. Like roast potatoes around here.
That's right.
Sweet potatoes.
There you go.
Well, thank you guys for the time today. I think this is a great podcast, just to highlight all the amazing things that are going on in both counties. We could stay here all evening if we wanted to include Wilson and talk about all the individual cities and towns in the Twin Counties. But you guys provided a great overview, and hopefully this will give some fodder for the discussion for developers,
there you go,
economic development folks, and just people that are thinking about the Twin Counties. So thank you guys.
Thanks for having us.
And thank you so much for your leadership, Benton, in our community.
Well, it takes a village.
There you go.
There you
Good deal.